Representative Chairwoman Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for being here. I wrote it down because I heard you use the phrase a lot, and I think it's what the Speaker Pro Tem was asking you about, no evidence of widespread vote by mail fraud. And I kept wondering, what exactly does that mean? Do you have a definition, or do you have a particular quote or citation from which you lifted that language?
It is not a term that I think is defined in the Webster Dictionary or any other court necessarily. Though I use it here just to demonstrate that on the flip side, that if there are incidents of voter fraud, they've been found to be very just minute, small, not impactful. I'm happy to elaborate and follow that up with other studies as well. I'm just not as
okay. So a certain amount of fraud is acceptable then. Is that my understanding of what you're saying?
We want to ensure that we agree with you, the elections should be safe and secure. And there's just been no widespread voter fraud that would threaten that security.
Okay, and that's what I guess I want to focus on. What does that mean, no widespread voter fraud? Because if there is a certain amount of voter fraud, that means that someone who voted in the election who was not a legal voter, they basically disenfranchised me when they voted. Is that correct?
I think what's correct here is that if you're looking at the basis of this law, there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud that would be a sufficient justification for the burdens that the photo ID requirement imposes on voters.
Okay, so what is it? What system do we have in current Georgia law that would allow us to identify your evidence of widespread vote by mail fraud?
I think that's a question that you have to pose to the Secretary of State and other elections managers. I know that they are always actively engaged in trying to seek out voter fraud. And so I would ask that you pose that to them. I'm not a voter fraud prosecutor, so I don't know.
Well, that's what this committee is here to do, is to craft legislation that ensures the integrity of our voting system. And you're saying that our current system has shown that there has been no evidence of widespread vote by mail fraud. And I'm just wondering what in our current system would allow us to ever identify that.
Again, I would ask that you pose that to the Secretary of State and the election administrators of this state. I'm here to testify and say that there has been found no evidence of this fraud. Therefore, there's no legitimate justification for the burdens imposed by this law.
And would you agree that if our current signature match system is insufficient to identify the widespread evidence of fraud, that your statement basically has no meaning, that there very well could be evidence, there very well could be widespread voter fraud, but our system is not set up to detect it?
I think that there are a lot of conditionals in your question there, and there are a lot of premises that I think we would disagree with. I am solely here just to testify on the impact of this legislation on voters who are voting by absentee who may not have the identification requirements required in the law.
Thank you.